This BizNews production is brought to you by Brenthurst Wealth. A Mauritian trust offers a powerful solution for global estate planning. Invest better with Brenthurst.
Well done, Rory. I hadn't followed the latest Mashatile bodyguard story, but I do remember speaking to you at the time of the other famous story. Now, there are surely people here who would love an update on what happened with the other famous story, because if those guys had been fired for beating up some odd motorist who perhaps looked at Mashatile wrong, then they wouldn't be driving up a one-way the wrong way. So where are we on that?
Well, I'm going to be Antoine Dupont and pass the ball to Ian because he's probably far more qualified than I am. But what I can tell you is that those 8 Presidential Protection Unit protectors, and that's my unit, were initially suspended, and then they did appear in court, and I believe that court case is still ongoing, Ian. So action was taken there. What we read about in the media the past week in Joburg is whenever he comes out of, I think it's one of the residential estates in the Midrand waterfall area, and there's bumper-to-bumper traffic, they simply just block the intersection with the cops and push their way up the wrong side of the traffic past all the citizens sitting there. Now, let me tell you all a story. You know, Madiba didn't live in the official residence in Pretoria when he was our president, like every president before and those since. He lived at home in Houghton in his own personal house because he had his 4 grandchildren, 4 grandsons living with him. Mandela was at Wits, and Daba was at high school at Sacred Heart College, and Andile and Mbuso were running around in nappies when I served Madiba. And he wanted to live with him. I mean, who would deny that? He'd completely missed his 2 daughters growing up while he was locked away on Robben Island and other prisons. So our job was to drive him up the M1 from Houghton to the Union Buildings, Alec. And we had our motorcade. I won't discuss the tactics, but one of the things that happens is that we have a vehicle out front who calls any potential risks back to the motorcade coming. And the president's motorcade was behind our lead security vehicle that was, the motorcade is commanded by my second in command. I don't command the motorcade because I'm in another vehicle and there's lots of calls and stuff going on. So there's an oak in the right-hand lane. And by the way, Cape Townians, do you guys know why they have those white lines on highways? You are the worst drivers in the country. Vuga nina man. Yes, like Cape Townians don't understand why there's a right lane and a left lane, or a middle lane and a right lane. They're hopeless. Anyway, so there's this oak sitting there like a Cape Townian on the M1 going north at about 90 k's an hour in the right lane. And the guys flash lights at him to say, you need to move over. And he's just not paying attention. I mean, it happens to all of us. So my 2IC sitting in the left front seat just blips the siren. He just goes, "Goop," that's all. So the guy looks up, sure, and he moves over, problem solved. We get to the Union Buildings. Where we got out of the car, that old man calls me, Rory, man, you must respect motorists. You cannot be pushing people off the road. I said, Tata, but no. He has a right to be there. That's the difference. That's how far we've fallen. So the point is, as I said, the reason that those guys get away with that behavior is because their commanders are too scared and too compromised to merely implement what the law says, what the procedures say. You can only use blue lights and sirens in an emergency, and being late is not an emergency.
Just read that opening sentence again. Just remind us that opening sentence.
Never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another and suffer the indignity of being the skunk of the world.
Do you think we've got there?
I do think we've come a massively far way, Alec. But I think that our leaders have so badly let us down. You know, I'm not a politician, but I say that this government, and it's mainly the ruling party, or I don't know whether there is still, has got absolutely no credibility with me. Because how can you go running and complaining to wherever they went, the United Nations Security Council, about an incursion into Venezuela to arrest a known and wanted narco criminal? So they run there and make a big song and dance. Choop still about what Dr. Iraj spoke to us today going on in Iran. They murdered 30,000 of their citizens, and this government said nothing. I have no respect for that. Sorry.
Probably worse. This government. By its silence, condoned that active action.
Well, by its silence, yeah.
Comrades Marathon. I've got to ask you a little about that, because you stepped up to the plate there. Why? You got a hell of a lot on your plate. There's lots going on in the Steyn household life, and yet you felt there was sufficient reason for you to get involved. And I'm not sure if everybody actually knows Rory's role there.
Well, I thought I had a little bit more time than I thought was required. Let me put it that way, Alex. So I told you, we've got a 40-something-year-old CEO runs our business now. I'm still a shareholder, I'm still a director, and I still work every day, but I don't run. I'm not in the office at 8 a.m. and leaving at 6. That's somebody else's problem now. So I thought I did have a little bit of time. A number of people asked me to throw my hat in the ring and stand for the election to the board of the Comrades, because there were certain problems there, and they involved board members manipulating or getting involved in certain tenders, going to their chommies and that sort of thing. And I know that there are a lot of Comrades runners here. My mate Gert sitting over there is one of them. And if you've run more than a few of those things, it becomes very, very dear to you. It's a national treasure, that race. You know, it was started, the reason it's called the Comrades Marathon, Alec, not many people know, it was started by a World War I veteran coming back from the Great War, wishing to institute a challenge physically demanding enough to honor the ultimate sacrifice made by his comrades in arms. And that's why it's called that. And next year, when we celebrate our centenary, we are going to honor military veterans across the board. And we're going to have a formal wreath laying, proper military parade, laying a wreath, light an eternal flame to honor that as we go into the next 100 years. So, and I have to say that anyway, I was elected to the board. We've got a fantastic board at the moment, really passionate people, and we are looking very forward to celebrating 100 years of this, what is known universally as the ultimate human race.
Now, it was quite interesting to have a look at what Ian and you have both said about the generals in the COPs. And then we have a look at what Prince was saying about the cabinet. It's almost like these are really proper jobs for pals. Because our cabinet, I don't know if it's the biggest in the world, but it certainly must be right up there. And our generals per capita have got to be amongst the highest in the world. How does one address that? How does one reverse that malfeasance on taxpayers?
Well, I think we got there slowly. So the answer is probably we need to undo it slowly. So you can't just boot someone out. But Ian was talking about doing proper due diligence or even lifestyle audits or whatever. And I think we should start there. And I agree with him. You can't only start at the top. You probably need to start throughout the structure of the police. But be, like Prince said it, he used the right word. We need to be merciless on these people. And again, I didn't get the chance to because I thought I had no time. But when we talk about courageous and radical changes needed in our police, let's depoliticize them in the way that I said. But let's also do the following. Alec, you know, in the United States, there's just a general law that if you drive past a school zone, the speed limits halve and the fines double. So you speed past a school in America, you're in a lot of trouble. I think we need a law that says a cop convicted of a crime, irrespective of what it is, the punishment doubles. Right there. Pass that legislation.
Tian has got a question. He says, "You're right that we cannot continue with this current status quo. Therefore, I don't believe that simply putting more boots on the ground is the answer. New ideas and structures are needed. Should provincial commissioners be empowered to establish special task teams consisting of SAPs, civil rights organizations, and private security companies to tackle specific organized crime?" Almost like, and thank you, Tian, that's a good question, almost like during the riots where it was a crisis, everybody pitched in. Are we not in a crisis?
Yeah, we're definitely in a crisis, Alec, but whenever I hear the word special task team, I start cringing because that normally means spend a lot of money and a lot of time wasting it and generating a report that nobody ever reads, and neither do they do anything about it. And I do believe in the autonomy, the independence of a police commissioner or a police chief or a police commander. They should not be beholden to some body that can emasculate them. By all means, consult, and consult widely. That's another thing that I learned from Madiba. You must talk and debate things robustly and hear every opinion and every view. But when you decide on the course of action, then everybody involved in that debate buys into that, and it's everyone's decision. So I don't want to ever arrive or publicly support a structure that takes away the autonomy of a police chief to do what he or she is called to do, and that is to fight crime and to defend our people. But certainly to listen to every voice, and business has a voice. The young people have a voice. Civil society has a voice, absolutely.
There are a lot of questions now, Rory. Sean W. wants to know, he says, there was a rise in kidnappings of businessmen and others in South Africa reported in the media, but we know it is a very real thing, especially up in Johannesburg. Do you have any information and advice on this issue?
Yes. A lot of our clients have been kidnapped, and we've done a lot of personal safety training as a result of this. And for many, many years, Alec, I'm talking about, because I've been running a security company for 27 years. Although, as I said, I don't run it anymore, but you know what I mean. And I could never understand why South African criminals were not doing what they were doing in Mexico and Colombia and other places in the world where they have these, they called them minute-maid kidnapping. So somebody in the bank would know what the balance is on your credit card. And they would either grab you or grab your daughter on the way to school, hold you up, take you to the ATM, drain that account, and release her or release you. Because it's hang of a lot safer than walking into a bank with an AK-47 and attracting lead from our special task force or from citizens that are, legitimately armed. And I could never understand this. And all of a sudden, it was like I poked the bear. And about 2.5, 3 years ago, this plethora of, it initially started in the Eastern Cape, and it's still ongoing there. And a lot of it is just underreported, like rape and other crimes that are underreported because people do not want to involve the police for whatever reason, a host of reasons. But it's a very, very easy way to earn easy money. They hold you overnight. And as the clock ticks past 12, they take you again to the ATM and pull out the next day's daily allowance out of all of your cards in your wallet or your on your Apple wallet or in Google Pay or whatever it is. They do that. So the only way to not become a victim of that is to do some of the stuff that I was talking about, Alec, to become informed, to be aware of your personal security environment, to always let somebody know where you are and where you're going and what time you're going to be home, and to have some way of calling the cavalry, whether it's a panic button, whether it's an app on your phone that you can hit, or, heaven forbid, you phone 10-111 and somebody actually answers the phone and the cops come and help you. It's not that they don't everywhere, but it's hit and miss. And you don't know, you can't definitively rely on that. Again, because of all the reasons that Ian was talking about and that I was hinting at. But information is key, and forewarning yourself, preparing your family, having a plan, and playing the what-if game, all of that stuff is the way that you avoid it. So we always say, very briefly, we always say when we train people, the first thing you need to do is avoid getting into a kidnapping or a hijacking situation. But if it does happen, you need to survive it. And then we do the training that teaches you how to survive that. And guys, your phone, your car, your any of your property, allerlei wêreldse goed, give it to the criminals. Don't put your life at risk for that stuff. Yeah.
James Core wants to know, would you join Prince's initiative?
I love Prince's. Will I join it? 100%. By the way, my wife thinks that I've got a second lady in my life, and her name is Helen Ziller, because I can't stop talking about her. I believe she'll win Joburg at a landslide. And I think that if there's anybody that can fix that blooming place, it's probably her. What was your question? Yeah.
Prince, Helen Ziller.
Prince, yeah.
So who
So
are you going to
Prince-
go with? Which of the two would you join?
No. 100% Prince, Helen in Joburg. But the national elections, I have to say, and I told you were there, I told Dr. Mulder that if I had to vote nationally, the party that represents my personal values, as Rob calls them, the Judeo-Christian values, I am a Christian, a Bible-believing one, then it's the Freedom Front Plus. But there's a problem there with demographics. But that doesn't mean we don't support leaders like that. I just wish that somebody would knock their heads together and get them into some kind of a coalition where they would support somebody else's candidate if it means keeping out the rest of the rabble.
But is the DA not supporting Judeo-Christian values?
Yeah, but they're a bit too liberal on the other side. I'm like center right, not center left. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Ian.
Center.
Yeah.
So those of us who are center.
Center. Yeah, center is probably where I am. Yeah, but
Yeah. Anyway,
you know what I mean.
I think that journalists should not be members of political parties either.
Journalists.
Just like policemen.
It's your call.
I don't want to pay tax.
Although my dad was a journalist, Alec. That's why I said to you that he couldn't afford to send me to university, because there wasn't much money working for the Rand Daily Mail, and then the Citizen in Joburg, and then the SABC when he retired. But anyway, he instilled in me a love of language and of good writing. So I'm very grateful to him for many of the things.
He served. He made
served,
a
yeah.
contribution.
But he paid tax. Yeah.
Michael Asher's question is, given the accelerating use of AI in security, intelligence, and geopolitical strategy globally, where do you see the most urgent priority opportunity for countries like South Africa to adopt AI to strengthen national security?
In intelligence. 100%. The USA will win the war in the Straits of Hormuz or wherever they are in the Middle East because of their intelligence capacity. And we should be using intelligence in our police service, and especially in our crime intelligence service, because the criminals are. Yeah.
Indeed they are. Sydney Place's question, what is the reason why forensic capacity in SAPS is so poor? What will speed up laboratory analysis?
So first of all, I don't think it's that poor. I just think it's under-resourced. And again, Ian will bear me out. There are some brilliant people, some very dedicated scientists working their fingers to the bone, burning the midnight oil, trying to get this backlog out there. But it suits a certain narrative to block our forensic laboratories or any other source of evidence for proceedings against certain people. So I think we've got some very, very competent forensic people in our police service. There's just not enough of them, and they're not distributed widely enough.
It's like those dockets at the courts that simply go missing.
I mean, how bad was it listening to that poor lady? I mean, my heart went out to her, that whistleblower, the colored lady. She could name facts and figures exactly how she was victimized by police commanders, and how the detectives investigating that were carrying 40 dockets 70 dockets per detective. How do you ever think we're going to get progress there? Where, the benchmarked model globally is you might have a team of 5 or 6 detectives working one case. Now you're giving one detective 40 dockets. What do you expect?
Peter's question is, how serious is kidnapping crime in South Africa? Who's their target market, and what should we do about it if we fear it?
Well, look, it's one of those things that if you take the old matrix and you look at impact, probability and impact, the probability is low for most of us in this room, but the impact is massive. Your daughter or you get kidnapped, it's huge. But the probability is low because what they do, criminals, is they target the lowest hanging fruit, which are normally foreigners that own cash businesses.
Just explain that a bit more.
So the Somali guy that's operating a business that's maybe a bit like a mini jumbo cash and carry, so he buys in bulk and he sells it, but everybody that comes in and out of his store pays in cash, and that has then got to go to the bank once a week or however regularly he does that. They knock him, and because they know he's got cash somewhere. So they'll take the cash and they'll take him to his house and say, open the safe or wherever, because they work in cash. These people don't believe necessarily in banks. It's probably in a sofa or under a mattress or in a safe somewhere.
In a sofa.
Euphemism.
Are these people legal or illegal immigrants? If they were illegal, you would imagine that they don't really have much recourse.
I think there's a few of them that may be illegal, but most of them would be legally in the country, legally running an honest business, trying to make a living, trying to feed their family, put their kids through school, and the criminals target them. Yeah.
What do you think about matriculants doing 24 months national service in SAPS or SANDF and then receiving a bursary to a college or university?
So I'm a massive believer in that, but not 2 years. I think 12 months is enough. And I think every school leaver, male and female, should be doing some form of national service. I know that term national service has got a negative connotation because of when you and I had to go to the army. But look at Israel. That happens in Israel. Everybody does it. So you've got you to your question to Ian about commandos and reservists. So you get a trained cadre of people, a generation that are trained. And I mean, we're all employees. We see it in our businesses. These youngsters, Gen X and Gen Zs, they've got no blooming stickability, man, because they never went to boarding school or the army and got a flippin' size 10 boot up your backside if you didn't listen to the corporal. We need that. Yeah. No.
Were you the corporal giving the size?
No. I was very definitely getting it. Yeah.
Martin Versveld asks view on reinstating the death penalty for the worst crimes, murder, rape, etc. Would this not help our prisons?
Well, if you're asking me personally, that's why I wouldn't support the DA, because they're against the death penalty. I'm firmly for the death penalty. Yeah.
Is the DA against the death penalty?
I think so. They're liberal.
Do the people who vote for them know they're against the death penalty?
Ask him. I'm telling you what I believe. Yeah.
Are they against the death penalty?
Ask him. Yeah.
Are they? Does everyone here know?
Policy-wise, I don't think they support the death penalty.
Then the Western Cape is going to Gayton.
And I'm very anti-woke. Again, why I'm center-right. Bugger that agenda. I don't want that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Gayton's very much in favor of the death penalty. He just hasn't, Gayton McKenzie.
He's my man. Yeah. And he says,
I saw you sucking up to Corne over there. Now you're talking to Prince. You love Helen Ziller. Now Gayton's your man. Come on, Rory.
You know why, Alec? I'll tell you why. Because I think I can count on one hand politicians who I trust. And she's one. Yeah. And I think Corne Mulder is another one. He's the longest serving parliamentarian in our country. That must say something about the man's integrity. I don't trust politicians because I think by and large they serve themselves first. Yeah.
Except Ian.
Except Ian. Ian's my man. I told you, I rejoiced in him taking on Kele. Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure talking with you, Rory. Thank you for sharing so much personally and of your insights. And I look forward to having you back again.
No, you're welcome. And can I just say, Alec, that Magnus or someone said, I don't know how you do it. And I told here's my financial advisor sitting there. I've been subating him for 3 years to come to this conference because you really have this incredible knack of assembling this amazing list of speakers that you can sit for 3 days. Not many of us can do that in today's fast-moving digital world, instant everything. But you do. You pull this lot together, and both the speakers and their content is excellent. And I just want to say thanks and commend you for that. So thank you.
This Biz News production is brought to you by Brenthurst Wealth. The wealthy aren't leaving South Africa, but their trusts are moving offshore. Invest better with Brenthurst.